Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Pam and I make content around mental health, trauma and recovery. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about life story work / narrative work. I say life story / narrative because in social work, we call it life story work. And in the world of psychology, we call it narrative work. But the actual work in itself, this intervention, there's a lot of similarities and there's a lot of things that overlap. So I'll probably be using these words interchangeably. But yeah, I wanted to talk to you about it because I think it's a highly effective intervention to support you in your recovery journey. Certainly helps you develop a sense of identity. So especially for people who feel a bit displaced due to their life circumstances, or for people who want to develop deeper insight into their life experiences and even recognize their resilience and so on and so forth. I think is a very effective intervention to support you. Often at times when we go through difficult life circumstances, the brain has a way of making that our identity, right? It's almost like the best way I can describe it is that imagine a blank canvas, right? And every life experience that you go through serves as a small picture on that blank canvas. But when you go through difficult life circumstances or adversities, it's almost like this canvas gets painted black. And although all these other life events are there, it's clouded and it's hidden by the trauma that you've gone through, by the assault, by the abuse, by the adversity that you've gone through. But what life story work does is that it doesn't erase the black thing that has covered all your life narrative, but it creates a space for it on the canvas alongside everything else. So it helps put things into perspective. It helps you understand that your life is a narrative, right? You're more than your experiences, which in turn often makes you feel more in control over your life as well. So the actual work or the intervention in terms of how it's done is very straightforward. But before I get into how you do the work, I just want to share with you a couple of things to probably consider before doing the work. One is to remember that this is a piece of work that is meant to be done over a period of time. You can't do it in a day. It's called life story work for a reason, because you're addressing things in your life in a chronological order from birth up until now. It's going to take you a long time. For me, I think it took me about a year or so to do my life story work. So that's one thing to remember. The second thing is that it can be very flexible in its approach. So there isn't a specific way to do it. If you're creative and you want to add a bit of creativity to it, you can. I did mine by way of writing a book. Some people choose to do it as an art project or as an art journal or as a timeline where they get a huge piece of paper and almost work on it as a project over a period of time. So it's quite flexible in its approach. So do pick the method that works for you. And I'll probably say another thing to remember is that it's better to do it when you don't have distractions, right? Because this work is very reflective. It's about your life experiences. Try and carve out sacred time to do it. Minimize as much distractions as possible and just create an environment of safety, of mindfulness, of calmness to allow you the opportunity to reflect, because there's a lot of reflection that goes on into this work. So those are the key things to remember. Remember that you can pick a method that works for you. Try and carve out a specific time, a sacred time, a safe space to do it. And also remember that it can be done over a period of time. So there's no need to rush it. Some of you may need time. I remember when I was doing mine, there were times where I had to stop and take a breather for a couple of weeks because the things that I was addressing was a bit too much for me. So I needed some time out. It's okay, right? It can be done over a period of time. So once you've got all those three things covered, it's time to start the actual work. So how do you start it? Well, you start off by writing significant life events in a chronological order. So if you're doing it in a book format, for example, chapter 1 could be called My Birth. Chapter 2, my parents' divorce. Chapter 3, my best friend Daisy's. Chapter 4, the assault. Chapter 5, my first boyfriend. So, give it titles. If you're doing it in a timeline, it can be done in exactly the same way. Or what you could do, if you find it a bit much and you don't know where to start from, is that you can plot it out at different stages in your life. So you can do 0 to 5, 6 to 11, 12 to 15, if you want to do it in that way. But I tend to feel that focusing on significant events is much better because it hits the nail right on the head, because you know exactly what it is that you're going to be talking about. But either way, find the method that works for you. So once you do that and you plot things out, significant life events in your life, again in a chronological order, that's very important. from birth up until the stage that you are right now in your life, go all the way back to the beginning from birth, and start writing factual information about the circumstances around your birth. If you don't have certain things, or if you don't know certain things, that's okay. You can always go back in and add more details later. But start with cold memories. Cold memories is essentially the factual information. What happened? When did it happen? Where did it happen? Who was there? Why did it happen? So very factual information. Again, if you were born maybe premature, I was born premature. Do you know the circumstances around your birth, for example? Were your parents married when you were born? Were you planned? Were you conceived from rape? Or what were the circumstances around your birth? Just be very factual. Be specific to time, place, date, people. Write all of that down. And then you move on to the next stage and you do the same factual information. Or you can just stay on the first one and do all the work, and then move through to the second one and do all the work. So once you've done the factual bit, the next bit is to introduce your feelings. How did you feel about this event? What were some of the most intense emotions that you felt at the time, right? If maybe you were too young to remember how you felt, try and look at it in hindsight. As an adult now, how do you think you would have felt as a 3-year-old experiencing that, for example? So what are some of the intense emotions that you felt? Were you angry? What did that anger look like for you? So be descriptive, involve as much as you can. This is where we're getting into hot memories. So hot memories is basically involving feelings, sensory, cognition, all these things to help you relive these things. When you mix the cold memories and the hot memories, it helps you process these life events. So after you've dealt with your feelings, you can then start addressing physiological or sensory factors. So what did you see? Did you see dad shouting? Did you see mum drinking and passing out on the sofa every night? What did you hear? Did you hear a lot of shouting? What did you feel? What sensations were you going through your body? Was your heart pounding? Were your feet trembling? Were your hands getting sweaty? So try and bring in as much of those sensory physiological factors as much as possible to build a story, to help. If a person was reading your story, almost as though they're watching a movie and they can sense what was happening. This is the level of detail you're trying to capture in your narrative, right? So once you do the sensory and physiological factors, you then look into the cognitions, right? What did you think? How did you perceive this? What were you thinking when this was happening at the time? So once you do that, also include how you're feeling right now. This is where the grounding techniques come in, because often at times, depending on what experiences that you've had, when you're reliving it can be very difficult. So the way to stay grounded is to bring the here and now in your narrative. So make a note of how you're feeling now. How are you feeling as you're writing about this narrative? What emotions are coming up? Is it similar emotions to how you felt then? What mental images are you getting? So include all of that in your narrative. So once you do that, then you move on to the next stage, the next significant event. Again, good and negative things, the same thing applies. If it's good, talk about it in great detail. The excitement that you felt, the joy, it felt like your heart was leaping out your chest. Be descriptive and do that for the rest of your narrative. Once you do that, you can then start making links between then and now, right? How has those experiences shaped you now as an adult? How has it affected your relationships moving forward? What patterns and behaviors can you see now in your life that was present then? Right? How has this shaped your view of men? How has this shaped your view on marriage? How has this shaped your view on yourself, your self-esteem moving forward? So making connections between then and now, and trying to capture a whole narrative. So that's essentially what the work has done. Don't worry, guys, I will leave some prompt questions in the description down for you to just, if you get stuck, have something to support you in terms of carrying on with your work. But like I said, this is a highly effective way of work. This is a highly effective intervention. I done it myself, so I can testify to how well it works. It made me understand things in perspective, right? It helped me think about things that I never considered before. It helped me understand my story. It helped me realize my resilience in the whole narrative. And most importantly, it puts the difficult life adversities in place with everything else, so that your life and your identity doesn't just become about what you've gone through, but you realize that is a piece of the puzzle. It helps you feel more in control of your life. And if you feel more in control, the symptoms of the stress, of trauma, of PTSD, of depression, whatever it is, anxiety you're going through, is likely to reduce as well. So I hope you found this video useful, guys. If you've done this type of work before, whether you've done it alone or with a therapist, I would love to know how you found it. Did it work for you? Did it not work for you? Write it in the comments. Let's have a discussion about it. If you have any specific questions as well, feel free to leave me a comment. And like I said, I will put down some prompt questions in the descriptions as well to help you under all the various headings that I've talked about, you know, feelings, physiology, cognition right now. So I will put some prompt questions as well to help you in doing this work. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in my next video. Take care. Bye.